Hello my beautiful people, you're welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be drafting an off-shoulder princess dart bustier, and be cutting the lace so that we'll have the Igbo madam blouse. So if you're new to this channel, I say a very big welcome to you, and welcome back all my old subscribers. God bless you all. So to join this family, just hit on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell.
So to make our Igbo madam blouse, as some people call it, we will be using our lace. So this is the lace fabric, and I have the satin, the lining fabric, and of course my wadding. So I'm using a lightweight wadding, so I'll be doubling it to give me what I want. So that is, I will double it. So now, since I'll be cutting directly on fabric, I would cut on my satin before transferring on the main fabric and on the lining fabric. So I'll place my satin fabric on fold. Now, the measurement I'll be placing on fold is the biggest measurement divided by 4 plus the allowance I'll be needing. So the biggest measurement is the hip, because it's the full blouse. So the biggest measurement is the hip, which is 46 divided by 4, that is 11.5. So I'll add 5 inches for both the darts allowance and the seam allowance. So 11.5 plus 6 plus 5 inches, that is 16.5. So I'll fold my fabric on 17 inches. Okay, so I'll just fold it to get 17 inches. So I have folded it to get 17 inches. Okay, even it's up to 17.5, so I'll just reduce it a little bit. I have 17 inches there. Okay, so after folding it, I will just mark this top because I don't need this side. So I'll just mark it so that I can have my starting point. Okay, so now this is my starting point, and I'll be making off shoulder princess dart blouse. Okay, so it's off shoulder princess dart bustier blouse. So since it's off shoulder, the standard we usually take off from for the neck depth is 4. So that is just the standard, but you can take whatever neck depth of your choice depending on how low you want the off shoulder to be. So for this very blouse, I want it to be 5 inches. Then I want the neck depth to be 5 inches. Okay, so actually it's going to be like 5.5 inches, but I'll mark 5, so by the time I curve the neck, I will get up to 5.5 inches. So you can take up to 5, you can take up to 6. And since it is off shoulder, we'll be taking off the shoulder. Okay, so normally the neck depth is from the shoulder to wherever you want the neck to get to. So you just like imaginary shoulder, you place just like as if you're just imagining the shoulder is out, then you place your tape from there. So you'll be marking your neck depth. So you can see what I've done. I am placing the neck depth measurement, which is 5 inches from the starting point of my blouse. So this is the starting point. So that is where I'll place my 5 inches. So I've taken off the shoulder. Okay, so that's why it is off shoulder. So I'll place my tape at 5 inches. Then I would mark my vertical measurements, starting with the upper bust. So the upper bust is 8 inches. Okay, you know the upper bust is also the armhole depth. Where you have your armhole depth is also where you have your upper bust. Okay, so for this client it is 8 inches. So I would mark 8 inches. 8 inches is the upper bust. Then the bust is 10.5. I would mark it. And the under bust is 15. I'll mark it. The waist is 18. The hip is 23. And the full length of the blouse is 26. Okay, the full length is 26. She wants it very low so that when she ties wrapper on it, it will cover well, it won't be coming up. So 26, but I'll add 1 inch for hemming. Okay, so I'll mark at 26. 27. Okay, so I would draw lines. So in order to be able to draw my lines, I will still repeat these marks. So 8 inches for the upper bust, 10.5 for the bust, then the under bust is 15, the waist 18, the hip 23, and the full length of the blouse plus allowance 27. So now I'll draw my line so that you see what we have there. So I have my marks here, as you can see. This is the upper bust, this is the bust line, this is the under bust, the waist, the hip, and the full length of the blouse. So having done this now, I would mark the neck line. Okay, so this is an off shoulder. It depends on what you want. There are different ways you can determine the neckline. You can just take whatever measurement or how wide you want it to be. You can decide to measure or take your bust span, then extend it by 1 inch. Okay, so here in this case, the nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches divided by 2, that is 4. So my bust span here will be 4 inches, and I'll add half inch to it, that is 4.5. So now if I want to place my neckline, I will take 5 inches. That is my bust span plus 1 inch. Okay, so I'm using 5 inches for my neckline. So I'll just mark it. So this is the neckline. Okay, so the next step now is to come to this upper bust and place the bust measurement. That is the bust circumference divided by 4. Okay, so the bust circumference is 40 divided by 4, that is 10. So I'll mark 10 inches. And because I want a little bit, because now I want to create my armhole, and because I want a little ease at the armhole, armpit area, I'll add half inch to this bust measurement. Okay, like I said, the bust circumference divided by 4 plus half inch, that is 10.5. So that is what I would mark here on my upper bust line. See it? Okay, so having marked this, the next thing, we'll connect from this neck line, okay, this neckline to this line to get our armhole. So to do that, you just use your curve. You can actually do it with your free hand, just curve it a little bit, not too deep and not so straight. Okay, so not too deep and not so straight, just a little curve. So I have it here. So I'm trying to mark it very well so that you can see the mark. So this is our armhole. The next thing, we're placing the darts. Okay, and to place our dart, we first of all mark out our bust span. So the bust span here, that's nipple to nipple, is 8 inches divided by 2, that is 4 inches. So this 4 inches, I'll add half inch to it. You know, by the time we cut out the dart, we'll be joining it. So I'll mark at 4.5 from the bust point. So from the bust point, I'll mark 4.5, and I'll mark it all the way down. So I'll just mark it all the way down. So now I would connect. So I have it here. So after doing this, the next thing, you come to the under bust. Okay, you come to the under bust. Now, usually what I do to get a nice bustier, you minus, that's the bust circumference minus the under bust circumference. Whatever you have, divide it by 2. Okay, you place half of it on this side and you place the remaining on this side. That is, for example, the bust circumference here is 40, the under bust is 37. Okay, so 40 minus 37, that is 3 inches. 3 divided by 2, is 1.5. So I'll mark 1.5 on this side and 1 inch on this side. Okay, so that is the standard formula, but there is always room for deviation. There's always room to manipulate. Most especially, it depends on what you want and how you want it to be. Okay, so I would not be using 1.5 here. I'll be using 2 because I want to have a nice cup. I want it to be well curved. So that's why I said it is subject to change. You can manipulate it to fit in with to what you want, but you always have the standard in everything, but you can always manipulate it. Okay, so I'll be using 1 inch on this side and 2 inches on this other side. So that is how I want it. Okay, so at the under bust, I'll mark 1 inch on this side. Mark 1 inch, while on this side I'll mark 2 inches. Okay, so this is it. Having done this, you come to the under bust, you come down by 1 inch. So by the time you have stepped down by 1 inch, okay, so this mark I placed here, I'll have to place them all the way down. So this one's first. Okay, so let's finish up with this, with the dot lines before making our curve. Okay, then on this side, remember I took 2 inches, so I'll mark it. So this is the 1 inch step down. You just connect it to this point using your curve like so. So just place it and you connect it. And this is what we have. Okay, then this side too, you can just make slight curve or you just connect it straight, but just connect it, okay, to this point here. So have it like so. So we are done with this side. Now we move to this armhole side. Since it is off shoulder we are making, you would measure 2 inches from this starting point. You mark 2 inches, and this is it here. Okay, so 2 inches. Let me be sure. Yes, I have it. That is 2 inches. You mark it. So by the time you have marked your 2 inches, connect it to this bust point here. That is, just connect it to the bust point like so. So we want to create our princess dart. So by the time you have connected it to the bust point, the same thing you did on this side, you also do it here. You step up by 1 inch on that line. You mark it. So by the time you have stepped up by 1 inch, you now come on this side, you mark 1 inch. So you can take either 1 inch or half inch, depending on how big you want the cup to be. So I want it well curved, so I'm taking 1 inch. So you mark 1 inch on this side, and you also mark 1 inch on this other side. Okay, so you mark, then you connect it to this 1 inch step up. So you connect this one like so, and you connect this one. So now the reason for this stepping up and stepping down is to avoid sharpness at the bust point, at this apex. Okay, so that's why I came up here by 1 inch, I came down by 1 inch, so that by the time you curve, it will not be sharp at this point. If not, by the time you just connect straight to the bust point, you connect from here straight to the bust point, you see this part will be sharp, as in it will be pointy, like you see some blouse, you see the bust point being pointy. So it is not that nice. So even without connecting, we already have our cup, but to curve it out very well, we'll connect from this point to this point. Just place your curve so that you can just smoothen it out and eliminate any sharp edge or any sharp or pointy edge there. So you just like blend it using your curve. Okay, so you just blend it. It's already blended, you can see, and the cup is well formed. So you can see this. Okay, so this is our princess dart, our off shoulder princess dart. So having done this, now the next thing is to place our horizontal measurement. But before that, you see this dart here, you have to replace it here, because we are cutting it out. So by the time you cut it out and join, it will be short off at this point. So we took 1 inch at this side and 1 inch at this side. Okay, so I would replace it here. So I would mark 2 inches here. I'll mark 2 inches. Okay, so you replace it. Remember, this is where our armhole is, so replace these 2 inches, and that is what I've marked. And this is not the seam allowance. Now there's something else. Sometimes you can just extend this by the same 2 inches you have marked in order not to have shortage. What you will do, just measure from this point to this point. What you have there, you also measure this one. Whatever you have there, the difference, you extend this one by the difference. Okay, so this one is longer, so I have it, this is where it is, 4 point, just a little bit after 4. Then you also measure this one. This one is exactly at 4, so just a little bit different. There's no need extending it, but if you like, you can extend it, so by the time you join, everything will be equal. So for off shoulder, I usually don't extend, but if you're making for princess dart with shoulder, whatever you're cutting out here, you have to extend this armhole by that figure, and you connect it to this other replacement. Okay, so that by the time you join, okay, by the time you join like so, everything will match up. So I'm trying to just show you what I mean. So we are going to join. So this one is okay, we will not have problem because it matched up. Okay, so the difference between this line and this line is just a little, it's just 1 stroke, which there's no problem. By the time you join, any little difference at the down, you trim it out. Since I have 1 inch for my seam, for my hemming at the down. So sometimes in sewing, it is actually good to have excess, and after working, you trim, than to have shortage. Okay, when you're making princess dart like this, it's always good to have enough at this lower part. So by the time you join, because some people complain of this issue of not matching up. By the time they finish joining, one part is longer and one part is short. So in order to avoid that, though when you have actually drafted very well, you won't have that problem. But in order to be at the safe side, always have extra down here. So by the time you join, after joining, you take the normal length you want and trim out any excess you have. Okay, so you don't add too much in order not to waste your fabric. So we have done this now. I have replaced this dart. Okay, so what I will do then now is to add my seam allowance. So I'll be using 2 inches seam allowance. Okay, so I'll be using 2 inches. So I'll mark it. You can use 1.5, you can use 2 inches. Okay, so this 2 inches, because sometimes some clients will add weight and they want you to expand the dress or the top. So 2 inches is okay for me. And another reason why I like adding enough allowance there, by the time you finish joining all the things you'll be joining here, you will see that this allowance will no longer be 2 inches. Okay, so upon, even though you have replaced what you have here, by the time you finish joining everything, you no longer have 2 inches there. So that is why when you're sewing, before you close up the sides, you still have to take your actual measurement. Don't assume that because you added 2 inches allowance, you just sew by 2 inches. No, you have to still measure you have to still take your actual measurements before you close up. So I hope this is clear. So what we have here has covered up for the bust. We'll move to the under bust. The under bust circumference is 37. Divide by 4, that is 9.25. So I'll first of all mark out my 9.25. Okay, so this is 9 and this is 9.25, in between 9 and 9.5. So we have 9.25. So I would mark it at the under bust. I have 9.25. I'll first of all mark, then I'll replace my dart, because we are cutting it out. You have to replace it. 1 inch at this side, 2 inches here, that is 3 inches. So you see why I said you should add enough allowance. After dividing your biggest measurement by 4, you add up to 5 inches allowance. So I've replaced the dart. What I'll do now is to add my 2 inches seam allowance. So this is it. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. Then at the waist measurement is 39. divide by 4, that is 9.75. So this is 9.5, 9.75 is this in between before 10. So that is 9.75. I would mark it. Replace the 3 inches dart and add my 2 inches seam allowance, and here it is. Okay, I hope you're seeing all this mark, but when I connect you see it clearly. So at the hip is 46, divide by 4, 11.5. So this is my 11.5. I would mark it, replace my darts, 3 inches, add my 2 inches seam allowance. I have it there. So the same thing I have here is what I'll mark at the lower part. So just measure it. Okay, that is, just measure what you have and replace it down. So this is it. So that is what we still have at this point. So have it there. So now I would just connect from this top. I'll connect to the under bust. So I want you to see it very well. So I'll connect to the under bust. So I have it. So from the under bust, I'll connect to the waist. So blend out any sharp edge. Okay, just cover out any sharp edge. To the this is the waist. From the waist, you connect to the hem. Okay, so you can just take it gradually to the hip, or you go straight to the hem. So let me take it to the hip, then to the hem. So I have it here. Okay, so just blend out any sharp edge. Sorry, I have double lines there. Just go this way. So if you have a hip curve, you can actually use your hip curve to create this curve here. So but when I'm cutting it, I just know where to follow. This thick mark is not part of it, so I'll just cut from this inner mark. Okay, so I have it here. So these are off shoulder princess dart with all the allowance that we need. So the next thing now is just to cut it out. So I've cut out the other parts. Now this neckline, you can create whatever you want on your neckline. You can decide to make a sweetheart neck. Okay, you can decide to just curve it a little bit. So like when I was taking the measurement, I said I want 5.5 for my neck depth, but what I took here is 5 inches. So that half inch now, this is where I'll place it. Okay, so I'll just mark half inch. I'll mark half inch because I want it a little bit curvy. So I'll mark half inch and I'll connect it or just curve it from this point. So I'll just curve it. I'll place my curve like so from this point, and I would curve it because I want it a bit curvy there. So just connect. So this is it. Okay, so I'll cut it out now. So this is how the neckline will be. Okay, then I'll cut the armhole. So now it's time to cut out the dart. So you just follow one side, you cut out this one, then you cut out this one like so. Okay, so this is our princess dart. Okay, so this is it. So now the next thing to do, I'll notch the bust point. I'll notch the bust point. Okay, so this will help me when you're joining. You can just start joining from here, then you connect to this point, then you connect this point all the way down. Okay, so or you can even just start sewing like that. Just sew. You can just start sewing anywhere you start from, it will match. But why I like notching this bust point, to help you in other parts of the fabric, like when you're cutting on the lace, when you're cutting your wadding, your lining and other things. It will just help you to be able to place it, because these marks would not be on the other fabrics anymore, but your bust point, when you notch it, it will help you to place. So you see that. Okay, so just notch the bust point, have it there, and notch this one. You have it there. So when you get your markings correctly and you do what I ask you to do at the bust, at this between the bust and the under bust, your pattern would always match up. So having gotten the front, as you can see, this is beautiful. I'll go ahead and cut the back. Okay, so let me fold the fabric and cut the back. So for the back, I've marked it. This is the starting point. Okay, this is the zipper allowance, 1 inch zipper allowance. Then remember, it is off shoulder, just exactly what I did in the front. I placed my tape at 5 inches, and I place all the vertical measurements. Okay, now at the back, you can use whatever dart you like. You can use the simple waist dart. You can still create your princess dart. Okay, so I'll be creating the princess dart at the back also. So what I'll do now, since there's no cup, or that is, there's no bust at the back, I'll first of all create my neckline, create my armhole, then I'll just create the dart. So the neckline I use in the front is what I'll also use at the back, 5 inches. Okay, then my armhole, remember, I'll place my bust circumference plus ½ inch here. That is at the upper bust. Mark it and you connect your armhole. So with this, you have the same armhole for the front and the back. So like I said, you just slightly connect. You don't curve it too deep, and you don't just make it straight. Just slightly connect. You have it there. So this is the armhole. So now at the bust point, you place your bust span, the same bust span I use at the front, 4.5. That is what I'm placing here. Now mark it all the way down. Now connect. So the back dart is just to give fitting at the back. There's no bust at the back, so we are not creating bust here at the back. Okay, so what we'll do here now is at this waist, we'll place the dart, not at the under bust, because there's no bust. So I just marked it for marking sake. So at this waist now, you can decide to use ½ inch, you can decide to use 1, but 1 might be too much, so I'll be using half. I'll mark half on the both sides. That is half on this side and half on this other side. Okay, so you mark it. So I'll mark it all the way down. I'll mark it all the way down. And I'll connect. Okay, So the next thing to do is to connect it to the bust point. Okay, so after marking it down like this, you just connect from this point to the bust point like so. So just mark it up to the bust point, and you also connect this one to the bust point like so. Okay, so by the time you have done this, you now come to this armhole area. Then you mark the midpoint. So just measure what you have there, 6.5. You mark the midpoint. Okay, so remember we're not creating a bustier at the back. That is why I am doing this. So by the time you mark the midpoint, just connect it to the bust point. You connect it to the bust point like so. Just connect it. Then after connecting it, you mark ½ inch on both sides, ½ inch on this side and ½ inch on this other side. Okay, then you connect also to the bust point. You connect like so and you connect like so. Okay, so now you can see that this side is a bit sharp. Just blend it. Don't want it sharp, just blend it and you have it there. So this dart that we took here, replace it here. ½ inch here, ½ inch here, that is 1 inch. I'll replace it. I have it there, and I'll add my seam allowance, which is 2 inches. Okay, I hope this is clear. Then this has covered up for the bust. At the under bust, I'll place the under bust circumference. Under bust circumference divided by 4, that is 9.25. 9.25. Remember that whatever you're placing should be after your zipper allowance. Okay, so 9.25 is here. I would mark it. Then I'll replace my dart. So just measure the dart you have there. Whatever you have there, replace it. Okay, replace it. Then at the waist also, my waist circumference divided by 4 is 9.75. This is 9.75. I'll mark it. Then I'll replace my dart. So I have 1 inch dart here. I'll replace it. This is it. Okay, then at the hip, just do the same thing. Place your hip circumference divided by 4. Here it is. And here I've not replaced my 2 inches seam allowance, please, so that you don't forget. This 2 inches seam allowance, 2 inches seam allowance, I don't forget. So this is the hip circumference divided by 4. I will place my 1 inch dart and place my 2 inches seam allowance. Okay, very important, don't forget. So I have some marks here, but I hope you understand why we have the marks. So whatever I have here should be the same thing that will be marked at this lower part. Okay, so that is what I'll mark there. 14.5. So I have it there. So now I would connect. So now there's one other thing, though I didn't do it at the front. I didn't do it at the front. That is because I don't need it. If you want your blouse to be curvy at this lower part, what you will do, just come up here. You can come up by 2 inches, you can come up by 1 inch. You mark it. Okay, hope you're seeing this. You can come up by 2 inches, you mark it. By the time you mark it, you can use your French curve. Just connect it to this hemline like so. So you can see it. Okay, so I didn't do it at the front because I don't need it. But if you need it in your blouse, you want it curvy, you can see what I just did. Just step up by 2 inches. Then you connect it with your curve to the hemline like so, and you have it there. So my own is straight because the wrapper will be tied on it, so there's no need for that. So in case you just need it, to do it that way. So having done this, now it's time to cut it out. Okay, so the neckline also, the same thing I did at the front, I would also do here. So I came down by ½ inch. and I connected it. So remember, it also cut across the zipper allowance. Connect. So here it is. So I'll go ahead now and cut out. So this is the back. So you can see it, I've assembled it, and this is what I have. Isn't this beautiful? You can see the way I cut it, so I can have this lace part at the top. Okay, these edges at the neck line. So this is it for the front. Okay, what I'll do now is to cut the wording, then join. Okay, and have it like so. So I've also cut out the lining piece. I've cut out the lining piece and also done the same for the back. Okay, so I've done the same thing for the back. So this is it, and this is what is left for the sleeve. So I'll show you how to cut the sleeve. So now I would show you how to cut the wording for padding. So that's what we'll do right now. So I have my wording here. I'll turn it to the visible side. That is the side that is shining and that looks sticky when it is ironed to the fabric. So that is the side I will place facing up. Okay, and I would just arrange it. And I said this is the light one, so I'll double it to give me what I want. So I'll just even out this edge. So I just want it to be straight. So I'll just even it out before placing my fabric on it. So this is okay. So now I will just take the satin for now. Just drop the lace aside so that it will be clear to you. Okay, so this is how you arrange your satin on the wording. So the wrong side of the satin, that's what you place. And you see the reason why I notched the bust point, to help you to be able to align this, because you want this point to be, that is the wording, to get to the under bust. Okay, that is where it will get to. So you have it there like so. This is how I want it. Then the wording will not get to this armhole and it will not get to the neckline. Okay, so place it in such a way that it will stop before this armhole. It won't get there. Then it will also stop before the neckline. So this is it. I'll just mark it. So you can just, and I want it a little bit out too. It will be full, but not, it won't get to the seam. Okay, so I'll just raise it up and maybe just minus, like from, just take out the 2 inches seam allowance that so this is where it is, just this 2 inches seam allowance. This is it here. So what you do, you just mark it to that point. Then, like I said, it will not get to the armhole, so you fold the armhole to at least about ½ inch that you will use in joining the sleeve. You just fold it down and you mark. Okay, so I will notch the bust point to be, so it will be easy for me to place it when I want to sew it. Okay, so now, like I said, this is light and I want it thicker than this, so I would cut out another one. I'll cut out another one. Okay, so I've doubled it. As you can see, I have 2 of it now. So with this, the wording will be thick enough. By the time you have assembled everything like this, you're already good to go. If you can handle your sewing machine, you are done.
So the video is getting too long, so I decided to stop here, and this is the outcome. And I have a lot of tutorial on this channel on how to draft and cut off-shoulder princess dart bustier and also the sleeve. So I'll be leaving all the link in the description box below so that you can check it out. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.